Chapter 11, Theodore Roosevelt National Park, North Unit Visitor Center. Casey parked the Gov ride in front of the North Unit Visitor Center under gray skies that threatened rain. There were two other cars parked on the far side of the lot, a pickup adorned with the NPS logo and a silver Subaru hatchback sedan. Two narrow, single-story, cream-colored buildings comprised the working corridors of the Park Service's North Unit. It reminded Casey of double-wide sitting back-to-back in a trailer park. The Park Service used these trailers at other parks, and he knew they dedicated one unit for workers, the other for visitors. Casey had left Knife River at 10 o'clock sharp and arrived 90 minutes later. An uneventful ride except for a county deputy fingering a radar gun behind a billboard halfway through the drive, forcing Casey to test out the vehicle's braking system. Worked well enough, no sirens or tickets, just the lingering smell of charred brake pads. His stomach grumbled as he exited the vehicle. Wish I would have taken the other half of my glaze of glory. Popping the trunk, he grabbed a sealed box Beekler had marked Teddy North. He couldn't believe they'd given Billy Geronimo and his entourage a tour that morning. The business card still in his pocket, he planned to send Billy his resume later that evening. He wanted to learn from a modern-day treasure hunter, but hoped an internship wouldn't involve hanging out with screen zombies like Garrett and Mariah. He also wondered if Geronimo had enough connections in the oil industry to tell him who was running the drill by Knife River. If Casey could find out the owner's name from Geronimo, he may figure out who the shooter was. Marching up the stairs, Casey shifted the box to his left arm so he could open the glass window doors. A bell jingled on the door as it closed behind him. Casey thought the makeshift visitor center was underwhelming, even by Park Service standards for a remote outpost. There were a few depleted racks of NPS merchandise, including a t-shirt sporting Teddy Roosevelt's face. There was a small black desk with a computer screen and cash register in front of a temporary pull-up display banner that read, "Find Your Park." The visitor center appeared empty, but there were feet shuffling in the back of the trailer. He rested the box on the table and slung his arm on top of it. In his mute brown uniform, he felt like a commercial delivery man. As footsteps approached, he guessed he would either see a career ranger like Beekler or a temp like himself. Casey felt his skin tighten when the worker's dark curls bounced around the corner. She resembled Beyoncé from her Destiny Child days, except taller and wearing a park ranger uniform. She greeted him with a smile, and he felt his heartache spike when he gazed into her eyes. Those same glowing eyes. There was a plastic bottle in her hand. She tossed the bottle on the counter and rubbed lotion into her arms. If I was a betting girl, I'd put money on you being from Knife River, even though you're screaming UPS vibes. Yeah, Casey managed to laugh. Knife River, not UPS. Just dropping this box and picking one up for the road. Was expecting you. I'll be right back. She leaned forward and grabbed the box. That's when her scent reached his nose. They held eye contact again for a split second longer than was customary before she took the box in the back. He reached in his pocket and found a piece of juicy fruit gum, which he slipped in his mouth. The bottle she dropped rested on the counter in front of him. Body lotion from Bath & Body Works. The scent? Cucumber melon. Oh my God, it's her, he thought. Spotting a mirror next to the merchandise rack, he glanced at himself. His beard looked a little unkempt, so he smoothed it out. He cursed himself for leaving a Stetson in the vehicle. He tried fixing his hat hair, but turned back to the counter when she returned with a box in hand. She slid the box onto the table and grabbed a clipboard. He waited to peek at her name tag so she wouldn't think he was checking out her breasts. Her eyes drifted down to the paperwork on the clipboard and he glanced at her name. Thanks, Ranger Banks. This is totally random, but were you at the Billy Geronimo lecture last night at Chokecherry U? She signed her name on a paper and handed the clipboard to Casey. I was there for a bit. Wait, I recognize you. You were the guy I made give up his second seat. Thanks for that. Casey felt his face get flushed and he focused down at the clipboard, scribbling his name in the empty box. That was me. I was pretending to be in first class when I only paid for economy. I'm Casey, by the way. He felt weird shaking her hand, but extended his right toward her anyway. I'm Piper. She smiled and shook his hand. Piper Banks, a summer intern here at the North Unit. Piper Banks. He felt moisture on her hand left over from her lotion. Nice to meet you. How's your internship going out here? Piper pretended to look over her shoulder in search of a manager. It's okay, she whispered. But this ain't it, Chief, if you know what I mean. Yes, more than probably anyone else in the state of North Dakota. Okay, big guy, here's your chance. You have her name, but get her number or something. I mean, she's a Park Service summer intern. Don't blow this. He had a sudden urge to name drop his father, but decided against it. He thought about his birthday and the new roller coaster. Before he could think of anything better to say, he blurted out, You hear about that new roller coaster at the Rough Rider theme park? Wanted to go check it out this past weekend, but was stuck out here. That's cool. Casey felt himself leaning toward her on the table. Not that you were in prison here, but that you know about the new ride. I was stuck at Knife River, too. I'd love me some roller coasters and theme parks. Piper dropped the clipboard in the cabinet drawer. Can't wait to try it out. Just ask her already, Casey thought. I know this is probably way too forward, but it's randomly my birthday today, and well, happy birthday, Ranger. Piper looked at his name tag. Ranger Clay. Thanks. I mean, I wasn't saying that to pull it together, man. What the hell? Casey cleared his throat. I had the afternoon off, and I was planning on trying that new coaster out. Not sure if it would ever work for you, but would you want to come and try it out with me? He felt his voice rise as he asked the question. Piper grinned, and Casey assumed every horny toad who stopped by the visitor center hit on her. He pictured a bored 40-something husband hitting on Piper while his wife plastered sheets of waxy toilet paper around the rim in the porta potties out back. It's a bit forward. Piper reached for a pen. And as amazing as the new coaster sounds, I have to cover the store this afternoon. Big yikes. Casey bit his lower lip. I totally get that. I just figured, but since you're a fellow park ranger, Piper wrote something on a blue post-it note. I'll assume you're not a serial killer or a stalker. Definitely not a stalker, but I've been around the Park Service long enough to know serial killers come in all shapes, sizes, and creatures. Heard rumors growing up about Smokey the Bear that gave me nightmares to this day. Piper fluttered her long eyelashes and gazed up at him with light brown eyes. Kidding, of course. Casey shook his head. Dumb joke. She ripped the note off the pad and handed it to him. Here's my number. Are you going to the second Geronimo lecture on Thursday night? He held the note in his hand. She'd written Piper and a 701 number. Thanks. I'm Casey, by the way. Not sure if I said that yet, but I'll text you when I get back to the car so you have mine. And yes, I'm planning to attend the second one, and you wouldn't believe this. Casey pulled Billy's business card out of his pocket and handed it to her. Billy Geronimo stopped by the Knife River Indian villages this morning, and I gave him a tour. No way! Piper stared at the card and handed it back. I thought about applying for one of his internships. Me too! Casey tried not to sound too excited. Billy, that's what he told me to call him today. Told me to email him my resume. I could mention you in my email as well. That's kind of you. I think I'll wait until after his second lecture before I decide. I got a weird vibe when I heard him speak the other night. Oh, really? Piper shrugged. Probably just because he's an out-of-towner who's showing a lot of sudden interest in our state. Yeah, maybe. Hey, since you're gonna go to the lecture anyway, would you want to grab a bite with me beforehand? I mean, if you're free. Sure. It's a bit of a drive from here, but I know the back roads and campus parking well enough to save some time. That's great. You still at the U? She nodded and her curls bounced. Rising senior. You? Graduated from Temple out in Philly earlier this month. Came right out here to Knife River to start a temp assignment a few weeks ago. The door opened at his back and Casey saw a visitor arrive. Nice. Maybe we can chat about the Park Service and your programs at Temple a bit on Thursday. I'd love to pick your brain. Casey grabbed the box and tried to give her his best non-cheesy smile. That sounds great. Any restaurant recommendations for a newcomer who doesn't know campus well? I'll text you when you send me your number. Piper winked at him and turned her attention to the new visitor. Welcome to Theodore Roosevelt National Park. Casey took his cue and, on his exit, saw a middle-aged gentleman beeline for Ranger Banks. As the door was closing behind Casey, he heard the man say, You look like a nice young lady. What would you recommend a fellow visiting from Montana check out while he's here? Casey felt 10 feet tall as he swaggered to his vehicle. There was an RV with Montana plates parked next to his gov ride. A sleepy middle-aged woman surfaced from the back of the RV with a roll of toilet paper in her hand. Pro move, he thought. Which way to the bathrooms? White porta potties around the corner, Casey said. I think your husband's already in the visitor center. Thanks, I'll catch up with him in a minute. Casey tossed the box in his trunk and sat in the driver's seat for a moment before turning it on. Piper Banks. He cupped his right hand over his mouth, the one he'd shaken her hand with. It smelled of cucumber melon. Guess my birthday wish came true.